It's the night of January 15th, 2026, Minneapolis. And if you haven't seen the footage yet, just picture this absolute chaos. It is 20 degrees below zero, the wind is just howling, and you have federal agents from ICE running this huge Operation Metro Surge.
And it was supposed to be, a standard sweep, but it went sideways, fast.
Sideways feels like an understatement.
Oh, completely. It turned into a brawl. You have a car crashing into a snowbank, agents slipping on ice, flashbangs going off.
Right.
There's even a report of an agent getting assaulted with, of all things, a snow shovel and a broom handle. It was just messy.
And all that chaos.
Yeah.
It's the perfect cover. Because while everyone's watching the riot lines, something else is happening, something incredibly precise.
Yeah, a black Ford Taurus pulls up to an empty FBI vehicle. A guy gets out, hooks a tow rope from a pickup truck to the trunk.
And just rips it open.
Just peels it open like a can. It was surgical. This wasn't some random smash and grab. They cracked a secure weapons locker, and in less than a minute, they're gone with an FBI rifle, ammo, body armor, and, this is the real kicker, a dossier with agents' personal names and phone numbers.
That is legitimate nightmare scenario for any federal agency. I mean, authorities move fast. They've already arrested a suspect named Raul Gutierrez.
Right.
But this story isn't just about one guy getting lucky.
Yeah.
It's much bigger than that.
Completely. Gutierrez isn't some lone wolf. He's allegedly a member of the Latin Kings. So what we're looking at here isn't a random crime. It's a collision.
A collision between who?
Between two huge organizations. On one side, you have the almighty Latin King and Queen nation, a gang so organized they have their own constitution.
Okay, and on the other side?
The United States government. Specifically, an FBI that's struggling with an internal inventory crisis so bad that losing a submachine gun is, well, more common than you'd hope.
And we've got the documents to prove it. We're looking at the arrest reports, a massive 2020 DOJ audit on weapons control, and even some older intelligence bulletins.
Right. It's an external threat meeting a very, very real internal vulnerability.
So let's start with that threat, Raul Gutierrez. The report said he was identified by his distinctive facial tattoos.
Which is, usually how it goes. The ATF and DOJ scooped him up pretty quick. But his affiliation, that's what's key here. The Latin Kings.
So help us understand, when you say Latin Kings, we're not just talking about a street gang.
Not even close. You have to recalibrate your thinking. They call themselves a nation for a very good reason.
That sounds a bit like branding, though. Is it really that organized?
It is institutional. They started in Chicago way back in 1954. And believe it or not, the original mission was actually about social justice protecting Puerto Rican immigrants.
Wow. So how did that change?
Over 70 years, it morphed into this massive criminal enterprise. We're talking about a group with a written constitution, a prayer book, and a hierarchy that, it rivals a corporation.
You said a constitution, like a literal book of rules.
Yes, the King Manifesto. It outlines their laws, their chain of command, everything. At the top, you have the corona, or the crown.
The national leadership.
Exactly. And below them are regional leaders called Incas. And to really get why a guy like Gutierrez would have the nerve to do this, you have to look at their past leaders.
Okay, who are we talking about?
Well, two names just jump out. First is Luis Felipe, King Blood. He founded the New York chapter back in the 80s. The man was an administrative genius. He ran the entire New York faction from his prison cell.
Wait, from inside? How do you even manage that with, monitored mail and everything?
He didn't just manage it, he expanded it. He wrote thousands of these handwritten letters, smuggling them out to order hits on rivals, even on his own guys. He basically turned the prison system into his own corporate headquarters. It took the feds years to realize that locking him up just gave him a captive audience for recruitment.
That is just terrifyingly efficient.
And then there's Lord Gino, Gustavo Colon, who ran the Chicago Empire from inside Menard Correctional for decades. The point is, this organization is incredibly resilient. So when we see a theft in Minneapolis, we have to assume it wasn't just impulsive.
You think they were specifically hunting for a federal vehicle?
The intelligence points that way. We have a National Gang Intelligence Center bulletin from 2010, that's over 15 years ago, warning about this exact thing.
What did it say?
It says gangs are specifically targeting law enforcement vehicles. And they're not looking for laptops.
We were after the hardware.
Exactly. The bulletin lists equipment, police badges, body armor, and uniforms. They want tactical parity. If the police have heavy vests, they want heavy vests. If police have AR-15s, they want AR-15s.
Or they want to impersonate them.
That's the other part of it. Imagine the chaos of a rival gang raid where the shooters are wearing FBI gear. That's the goal. So the riot provided the cover, but the target was chosen.
Which brings us to the other side of this.
Yeah.
The FBI. You'd think, given that they're a target, their own weapons security would be ironclad.
You would think that. But this is where we get into that massive 2020 OIG audit, the Office of the Inspector General. They looked at how the FBI, DEA, and marshals handle their weapons, and the findings were, well, they were alarming.
So what's the scale here? How many guns does the FBI even have?
Over 57,000 firearms. Pistols, rifles, submachine guns, the whole 9 yards.
That's okay. That is a huge armory to track.
It is. And the audit found that between 2015 and 2019, 45 of those firearms were reported either lost or stolen.
45. Over 4 years. I mean, is that a lot?
Yeah.
Out of 57,000, it almost sounds low.
It's better than it used to be, sure. But it's how they were lost that's so shocking. We're not always talking about sophisticated heists. We're talking about just negligence.
Like what? What are some examples?
One agent left a loaded Glock in a hotel restroom, just walked out. Another agent left their service weapon on the rear bumper of their truck and just drove off.
On the bumper. That's like leaving your coffee on the roof of your car, but it's a gun.
Precisely. And in 2007, a submachine gun was stolen from an agent's car. That gun wasn't just lost, it was later used in a violent shooting in D.C. So when we say lost, we really mean now in criminal hands.
So how did they track this stuff? There has to be a system.
There is. It's called the Asset Management System, or AMS. In theory, every single gun is assigned to a specific property custodian.
The person who's responsible for it.
Right. But the auditors found a ghost in the machine. They found over 360 firearms in the system that had no designated custodian.
Wait, what? So 360 guns just existed in the database, but no one was signed out as having them.
Blank fields. So if one of those guns went missing, who do you even ask? There's no name attached. It's a complete accountability black hole.
That seems like the most basic rule of inventory control.
And it gets weirder. The audit found this really bizarre issue with prop guns. You know, the plastic red and blue guns they use for training?
Okay, sure. For the fake ones.
Right. But they're still government property. Well, the FBI had destroyed a bunch of them, but because the plastic guns didn't have serial numbers, the system couldn't process their destruction.
So the computer still thought they existed?
Exactly. The database listed them as active inventory long after they'd been melted down into a puddle of plastic.
That's kind of funny, but also not.
It's darkly funny, but it points to a huge flaw. If your database can't even handle a plastic toy correctly, how much faith do you have that it's accurately tracking real, high-powered rifles? The digital record is just a suggestion at that point.
Okay, so we've got guns falling off bumpers and a database full of ghosts. But a gun is useless without bullets. Please tell me they're better at counting the ammo.
I really wish I could. This was the part of the audit that honestly made my jaw drop. They looked at consumables, ammo, flashbangs, that sort of thing.
Right.
They audited 14 sites. At just 6 of those sites, they found that over 1.2 million rounds of ammunition were completely untracked.
Hold on. 1.2 million.
Million.
Right.
With an M.
How is that even possible? How do you lose track of a million bullets?
It's probably not one big theft. It's systemic incompetence. Some field offices were using handwritten logs. Others were using spreadsheets with no security, meaning anyone could just go in and change a number. The auditors basically said, we can't verify any of this.
That is just staggering. And it's not just bullets, right? You mentioned explosives.
Yeah, let's talk about explosives. The FBI has special agent bomb technicians who need to store things like C4 blasting caps.
Really dangerous stuff.
Extremely. But in some of the smaller field offices, the FBI doesn't have its own storage bunkers, so they store their explosives in magazines that are owned by local or state police.
Okay, that sounds like smart cooperation.
It does, until you look at the access logs. The audit found that because the lockers were owned by local police, non-FBI personnel had keys.
Oh.
Yeah, it creates a massive chain of custody problem. If a brick of C4 goes missing from a shared locker, who took it? Was it the FBI agent, the local deputy? You can't prove it.
There's no way to know for sure.
And that brings us to the disposal loophole. This one is like a magic trick.
Okay, what is that?
So when a gun is supposed to be destroyed, it gets sent to the firearms unit to be melted or crushed.
Right, gone.
Eventually. But the audit found that agents were marking these guns as disposed in the main computer system before the gun was actually destroyed.
So the computer says the gun is dead.
But the gun is actually sitting in a box on a shipping truck somewhere.
That creates a huge window of risk.
Massive. If a crew like the Latin Kings hits that shipment, the FBI's own system wouldn't even flag it as missing. The computer would just say, "What gun? We destroyed that last week." They wouldn't even know to look for it.
Incredible. So let's zoom out. We've got Gutierrez's crew in Minneapolis. We've got the FBI with these huge inventory gaps. When these weapons walk away, where do they actually go?
They enter the pipeline. The ATF tracks this stuff, and they have a metric called time to crime.
What's time to crime?
It's the time between a gun's last legal sale or theft and when it's recovered at a crime scene. For trafficked guns, that window is short. About 58% are recovered within 3 years.
So they're moving fast. They're not sitting around.
Not at all. They're being moved to market along specific corridors. You've got the Iron Pipeline up I-95 from states with looser gun laws in the South up to New York and Boston.
I've heard of that one.
Then there's the Mississippi River Pipeline and another one pushing guns from Arizona and Nevada into California. So a rifle stolen in Minneapolis could be in Chicago in a few hours.
And stolen firearms are a big piece of this, right?
A huge piece. They account for about 22% of all ATF trafficking investigations. They're valuable to criminals because they're clean, not registered to them.
Which brings us back to the reaction to this Minneapolis theft. The political response has been intense.
That's putting it mildly. You've got the new FBI director, Kash Patel, promising total accountability. Attorney General Pam Bondi is highlighting Gutierrez's violent history.
And President Trump mentioned the Insurrection Act, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He's suggested using it to deploy the military, which is, a constitutional nuclear option. It just shows how one stolen rifle can escalate into a national political crisis.
And the public is just as divided. We were looking at those Reddit threads. One half is saying, throw the book at him. And the other half is asking, why is the government losing weapons while trying to regulate ours?
It's a fair question. And it highlights a really surprising legislative gap. There was a bill back in 2019, the Federal Law Enforcement and Public Protection Act.
What was it trying to do?
Something very simple. Require federal agents to lock up their service weapons when they aren't carrying them.
Wait, that's not already a law. I have to lock my car, but an agent doesn't have to lock up their rifle.
Not by federal statute, no. It's up to individual agency policy. There's no single law that says you can't just leave it in the glove box. That bill died in committee.
So let's pull all these threads together. What's the final picture?
The big picture is a perfect storm. On one side, you have the Latin Kings. They're sophisticated, they're organized, and they are actively hunting for law enforcement gear. They see a riot as a shopping opportunity.
And on the other side,
you have a federal system that, for all its power, has these incredible blind spots. 1.2 million rounds of untracked ammo, explosives in shared lockers, a disposal system that basically lies to itself.
It's like the gangs are playing chess, and the inventory system is playing with half a deck of cards.
That's a good way to put it. This theft in Minneapolis isn't just a one-off tragedy, it's a symptom. The gangs know where the weak points are. The real question is whether the agencies can fix them.
That's a pretty sobering thought. And it leads to a final question for you, our listener, to think about. We talked about that 1.2 million rounds of ammo the FBI couldn't account for. And remember, that number came from auditing just a handful of their field offices.
Right. It wasn't the whole country.
Not even close.
Yeah.
So if the world's premier law enforcement agency struggles that much to track its own bullets, how much confidence can any of us really have in the chain of custody for all the other weapons out there on our streets?
If they don't know what they have, they definitely don't know what they've lost.
Something to think about. Well, that's all for this deep dive.